Hey, Mark Rodriguez here. You're watching our second podcast show, which is called the Fighting Podcast, where we talk about new and old fighting games. And oh my god, in this episode, we're really going to go way back with fighting games. We had a small tangent about this in our Fatal Fury episode, but now we're going to dive right into the actual game. But I am not alone. With me is
NinjaPanda 1980.
Jupi-chan. And Johnny Rodriguez.
So yes, now we're going to talk about the real granddaddy of them all, not Street Fighter 2, but the original Street Fighter 1. Oh god. So in this episode, we're going to kind of go over, well, some of us will go over memories of playing in the arcade, because I sure didn't. I played the original Part 2 without knowing Part 1 ever existed. But we're going to go into that, and we're going to kind of discuss some of the characters, which ones have endured the Street Fighter legacy, and which ones have vanished, and I don't know. We'll see what we do. Maybe we'll get into like how will we bring these characters back or something like that. That'd be kind of cool too. So yeah, I believe Jupi actually played a game in the arcade. You can kind of tell us a bit about that, of your experience.
I used to go to a retro gaming center or an arcade when I lived in Japan, and for those who want to know, it was in an area called Takano-no-Baba. I think it was there, or Akihabara, one of those places. But yeah, they had a bunch of, older games there, and one of the games there was the original Street Fighter. And I've always wanted to play it because I never had, played it like in a home setting or anything like that. And honestly, before Street Fighter 2, I didn't know what Street Fighter was, or Fighting Street like it was called here. So I was like so excited. I sat down, put in my 100 yen coins, and just went to play. Had so much fun with it because now I can say I played first Street Fighter. Everything they say about the controls is true. It is awful. It is terrible. The characters were stiff. It was hard to pull off the moves. It felt like I was going to break the joystick. It just was not. It was a good experience because to me that's history, but a bad experience because the gameplay was so bad. It is just so amazing how they improved upon all of that for the second game, which kind of just blew it all up, And the characters. Oh, and also like when you play, you can only play as Ken or Ryu, and there really wasn't much difference between the two, unlike later iterations. But it was fun. Like I said, it was a fun experience to actually say that I've played it. I know some people have probably played the home ports of it, and I'm just wondering, what do you guys think of it? Maybe just compare it.
Well, I never really touched the home port of it, but when I was a kid, we used to have this arcade called the Gold Mine in the Old Thorpe Mall, and they had the original Street Fighter, except the control panel was a little different. On this one, it had your regular joystick, and then on the side, it had a big red and a blue pad, and depending on how you hit it, would change whether it was a hard, medium, or soft attack. So here I am, this 6-year-old kid, basically doing CPR on the punch and the kick buttons, trying to get this thing to work. The controls were definitely jank, and the movement was stiff, but I was still enthralled by the animation. Like, it still looked pretty good. So I had fun with it, even though I probably busted up my knuckles like a couple of times playing that game. But later on, when it became NEC Fighting Street, I never really paid that much attention to it. It kind of blew past my head because I was just like, this looks kind of like that Street Fighter game I played in the arcade. Now I found out years later, wait, it was. Whoa. Okay, but yeah, I never really touched the TurboGrafx 16 version, even though I should have and gave it a shot. But yeah, that was my experience with Street Fighter 1.
In my opinion, when you mentioned the TurboGrafx 16 version of the game, so for anyone who may know me, I really like listening to soundtracks, some gaming soundtracks. In my opinion, I think the TurboGrafx 16 version of that game's soundtrack is one of the best of all of them. It just screams 80s.
Yeah, I heard some comparisons on YouTube and stuff, and it actually sounds pretty good. It sounds close to the arcade or even better in some of the tracks. So they did a good job with that. Yeah, like I said, like Johnny and I, we probably only played Street Fighter 1 like whenever it came out with all those, Street Fighter compilations and stuff like that. But The first time I ever heard of it was Fighting Street TurboGrafx 16 version on like those Electronic Gaming Monthly magazines, and I knew there's one kid at school because the TurboGrafx 16 was not a not a popular console the way the Sega and the Nintendo was, So there's one kid had a TurboGrafx 16, and we were doing our typical, because back then we were kids and stuff. We were doing the whole Nintendo better than Sega, and the Super Nintendo's better than the Genesis, or vice versa, and that kind of junk. So this one kid started talking about TurboGrafx, how it's awesome, or like, well, no. And the dude was like saying something like, oh yeah, well, how come TurboGrafx 16 is the only console you can play the original Street Fighter on, huh? And my other friend's like, well, that's because our consoles don't want that shitty ass game. But that's how I got first introduced to some of those characters, the ones that didn't come back for the sequel. So whenever years down the line, Alpha was making the rounds, because I think at one point they were going to call it Street Fighter Generations or something like that, before they finally decided on Street Fighter Zero, and of course it was called Alpha in America. But they had like pictures of, I think, like Adon or one of them. So it's kind of like, oh, I remember this dude. I remember this dude from Street Fighter 1. Like damn, this is awesome. Because back then, Alpha was the first game that actually redrew the characters already after so many like versions of Street Fighter 2. So seeing a more muscular Sagat and Ryu with the white headband and the reddish hair like had in part 1, and seeing like Adon redrawn with more modern graphics, like, oh shit, this is gonna be fucking awesome. You know what I mean? But yeah, we didn't really get the experience until like the later Street Fighter compilations and stuff. Now, one thing I do notice is we still went to the arcades as kids, but I never saw that one there. I mean, we had Did Dug and Millipede, Centipede, Miss Pac-Man, and whatever else, but I don't remember ever seeing like Street Fighter anywhere in the corner or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's my experience. Seriously, I didn't know what Street Fighter was until Street Fighter 2. So, because I've never seen the arcade cabinet, growing up as a kid.
Yeah, and I really would have. I mean, seeing an arcade with the original big ass buttons like that would have been so weird. Like, I don't know. Like, now it's kind of different because you're kind of finding out about it like in retrospect, thanks to people's like videos or Wikipedia articles or whatever. But back then, you're like, I don't even know what I would have thought back then. I remember the original Street Fighter 2 already kind of blew me away with the 8-button directional forward flip, back flip, crouch, and roundhouse kick, and fierce, and whatever. I'm like, the fuck is all this shit? You know what I mean? I thought you had to almost play the game like a fucking computer, like a keyboard to play this game or something, Until you actually get into it, and you're kind of, oh, okay, this is second nature to me now. But first time seeing a joystick having like all these like 8 directional things and different labels and 3 punches and 3 kicks, like what the fuck,
Something else that you mentioned, like, okay, going back to Street Fighter 2 Alpha, whatever, but it didn't really click either, that, because like I said, I wasn't that familiar with Street Fighter, that, the look of like Ryu, for example, is like closer to how his look would have been in the original Street Fighter game. I mean, like stuff like that. I love like things like that, and I forgot to say that earlier.
Yeah, and from what I recall, I think back then, like, you couldn't even pick Ken. I think it was like it's Ryu. And if someone challenges you as Ken, if that person wins, then okay, then now he'll be Ken and he'll play the rest of the game on his own until someone else messes with him. So you can't even like select Ryu and Ken. Like, for example, Art of Fighting, you could purposely choose Ryo or Robert. You know what I mean? Like that was something odd. And the other thing's kind of odd about that game that didn't come back in later games or anything was the bonus stage. I guess the concept did, but not the stage itself, which is like Ryu, or I'm assuming Ken, having to karate chop like the pile of what are those things called? Like tiles?
They were roofing tiles, and then on the other bonus stage, it was a couple of monks holding up bricks and blocks.
Oh, I forgot that one. Damn, it's been a while.
Yeah. Because you have to jump up. It was like four. Like, I believe there were like 4, like 2 on each side. So you had to like jump and hit that one, and then the lower ones too.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, wow. But yeah, after that, obviously, like, the general idea carried over, but, Street Fighter 2 used different things, the car and the barrels and stuff like that, but that's interesting. Any general thoughts on the overall, what we like to call sometimes in the tropes, first installment weirdness there, Johnny?
Well, you still gotta give credit that it's kind of like how they started with the whole fighting game thing to begin with, especially in terms of the Street Fighter franchise. But in my opinion, it's just a game that's very long forgotten, to be honest. Like it wasn't. From the sound of it, it didn't really sound like the game was heavily promoted because I never remember seeing that game when I was a kid at all. I mean, the first Street Fighter game I've ever saw was, Street Fighter 2, but I've never actually seen Street Fighter 1 when I was a kid. So it's kind of like, I give them enough credit that it's kind of like how it all started, but it's kind of also like I don't know, it's kind of like a lackluster in certain aspects.
Let me see here. Another thing about Street Fighter, just to kind of get into the game in itself. So as we already kind of established, you can only pick Ryu. If a second player comes in there, Ken. If you win, now you can be Ken. But most of the time, you're just going to be Ryu on a one-player game. And this one, honestly, I guess Fatal Fury kind of took the hint from here. Because in the game, you get to choose like which country you're going to fight against first. So you choose whether you're going to fight in either USA, England, Japan, or China. And each country has two different fighters. And once you beat them, then you move on to the next country until you fight all the guys in those countries. And then finally, like the bosses. So, oh my god, my memory's kind of off here and there. I really should have played that game like a quick refresher on one of the compilations. But I remember when you choose USA, and we can kind of do this too. We'll go into the characters and kind of go into the where are they now kind of thing. In USA, first you go against Joe, and Joe's just basically as generic as he could be. He's short-haired, blonde, martial arts, kind of a fist fighter kind of guy, and yeah, we never really saw him again. Yes, basic punches and kicks. My understanding, people sometimes say that he was kind of the prototype for Cody, because a lot of his basic punches and kicks are the ones that Cody uses when Final Fight came out. And, yeah, I don't know. In my opinion, since Street Fighter V did a good job of bringing back characters and making them, like, dramatically different sometimes, like when you compare Lucia in the game as opposed to how she looked like in Final Fight 3, or Poison has a new weapon than what she had before. Abigail had one hell of a huge redesign, that kind of stuff. Like, on one side, I understand that you wanted to just make an all-new character, but honestly speaking, like, Luke could have just been Joe. Like, big redesign or whatever, maybe one of his alternate costumes would have just been the pants or whatever, but Luke could have just been Joe, and that would have been like you're bringing him back kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, considering his background story, it's unknown where he is, because apparently he was a former Street Fighter who used to be a professional champ, then something went wrong, and he went on the run for the rest of his life. He was entering the Street Fighter tournament to clear his name, but since obviously he doesn't win, he just kind of takes off, and you never really see him again. The only time you ever really see him otherwise in the game is actually at the very beginning, like when you don't put your quarters in and you're just waiting for it to boot up. He's the guy that actually punches through the brick wall and has the Street Fighter logo on the back of his jacket.
Oh my gosh, you are so right. I'm seeing it now.
And so after that, then you fight this boxer dude named Mike, which a lot of people used to think that maybe it was Balrog, because remember in Japan, Bison's name originally, Balrog's name originally was M. Bison, which is supposed to kind of, resemble Mike Tyson overall look and stuff. And they wanted to avoid potential copyright or Tyson, suing or whatever. That's why they switched the name to Balrog, which Balrog was originally Vega's name and Bison was originally Vega. It's a big mix. But there were people theorizing back then that his name was M. Bison, and we never really knew what the M officially stood for. It could have been Mike, could have been Mike Bison or whatever, but no, later games and stuff, I believe one of the endings in the new Street Fighter V, because in Street Fighter V you could do these little mini arcade modes of Street Fighter 1, 2, and 3 and all those with different endings and everything. It kind of goes where the characters were in that point. There was some point where Balrog actually beat Mike, or Mike was somewhere in the background, but by the way, it confirmed that no, they're two different characters, you know what I mean?
Yeah, given the background story being different for Bill, because I used to think the same thing that the Mike in the original Street Fighter was like, the M. Bison or Balrog for the other series. But that Mike, the Mike Street Fighter 1's Mike, has the backstory that he killed someone in the ring and had to go to jail for it. But our Street Fighter 2 and up Mike Bison, he didn't have that kind of a storyline. He had a storyline closer to Mike Tyson's.
Yeah, that's a good point though, because you were in Japan, so that means that the first time you like whenever you got into Street Fighter, you had like that experience that to you Bison was Vega, and so forth, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. And like I said, Street Fighter in the arcade, especially in the Japanese arcade, it's just fun because you get to watch the other people play. They were actually good, so I lost my turn really fast, so you had to let other people get on. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. I loved it.
Yeah, and you see it like in anime and stuff, because those names they never switch. They're still like Bison is still called Vega to this day. Like even in Street Fighter 5, if you're playing against Fang, and because you can actually switch the voices from English to Japanese or whatever. Whenever he loses, his death scream is like "My Lord Bison" and all that, because he's like a real big like suck up to Bison. But if you have the Japanese voice, like Vega Sama and all that, so even then they kind of keep that and everything.
Oh, another weird fact on that one too, and it has been confirmed on the CRI webpage, which is Capcom's like official Shadowloo webpage. The Mike from Street Fighter 1 is the guy that takes an L at the beginning of Street Fighter 2. When the two guys are fighting on the street and the one black guy gets knocked out, that's Mike.
Okay. I gotta rewatch the scene.
And they redid his character model, and he takes an L again in Street Fighter 5 in the story mode. When they first reveal Alex in the wrestling ring, he's the guy that got body slammed by Alex at the beginning of the scene.
Oh, I gotta watch that shit again. I never beat that game because it's just so many characters, so many endings. Because you gotta beat the game like multiple times with different characters. If you're doing like the Street Fighter 1 campaign, Street Fighter 2 campaign, etc. It's just so much. But I gotta get back to those characters. Like damn, I'm missing out.
Wow, I'm sorry. I'm just amazed at that. So let me get. So I don't think Capcom likes Mike very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like they kind of hate Mike and they hate Joe, which I'm really starting to think that might be the Super Joe they've been referring to in a couple of their Capcom games, but I haven't confirmed that one yet.
Yeah. So
the bottom line is that Capcom does not like the U.S. characters outside of like Ken and Guile, and
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. If it's not Ken and Guile, they're just pretty much cannon fodder.
Oh God. So moving on to England, we fight up a very familiar guy named Birdie. Very big, tall individual with the mohawk, and he has lots of powerful punches and stuff. So obviously his attacks do more damage than usual. And well, obviously he comes back in the Alpha series, and I mean it's kind of funny because he was a white dude in Street Fighter 1, and I don't know where they got the idea to make him a black dude now in the Alpha series, and I forgot which game it was. I think it was maybe Alpha 3 or one of those. One of them even said like one of his win poses was like, "Oh what? Oh before? Oh yeah, I was sick back then."
Yeah, he claimed he was sick and that he had vitiligo, when the truth was the Birdie that you see in Street Fighter 1 isn't the real Birdie. He was afraid of getting his ass whooped, so he actually paid a guy to pose as himself in the first tournament. So yeah, that Birdie in Street Fighter 1 is an imposter. That's actually a buddy of his that worked in the same club.
Where is that from? Wow. What game referenced that?
Again, it was on the CRI page.
Oh my God. But
okay, dude, I'm sorry. I just want to know who at Capcom decided that was a good idea. Hey, guess what, guys? We just made a little mistake here, so let's cheat. Let's just make up a little story and say like we painted Birdie. So I'm sorry. I can't Capcom. I can't.
Now, one funny thing was, I believe in Super Street Fighter 2, Ryu's ending, that I guess first draft of Birdie made a cameo, because obviously that was before they thought of Alpha. But yeah, Ryu was actually uppercutting Birdie, classic Birdie, before Alpha came out with the new design and everything. And of course, Birdie's storyline in Alpha, he wanted to be part of Shadaloo, and then Street Fighter 5 he came back larger than ever before. I guess he became a big old glutton. He wasn't getting fed enough in Shadaloo, and eventually bumped into Karin, and Karin hired him kind of like a bodyguard of sorts that she doesn't really need one, but in exchange for food. So Birdie's been making a comeback. Birdie's been seen in the all 3 Alpha games, and he's been in Street Fighter 5.
Yeah, Ken even cracks a joke about his weight at one point, like during the story mode, when you go to fight him, after you beat him, Ken kind of looks at him and goes, "Are you sure we haven't met before? I mean, I could have swore I remember you, but you were a lot smaller." And he's like, shut up, we never met, screw you, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, God. So the next character is kind of interesting and due for a comeback. We have Eagle, and it's a guy in a suit, and he fights with sticks. I forgot what they're called. I think they're called like Eskrami.
Tombo, I believe. Not Tombo, no, that's...
Like Eskrima sticks, right?
No, it's not Tombo, but Tombo means, dragonfly. I can't think of the name of it right now. It starts with a T.
But yeah, he fights with sticks and he spins and stuff. Of course, the sticks give him the unfair advantage. You gotta watch out not to get smacked with that. And apparently, he was some kind of hired agent or something in the first game. And even though Eagle hasn't returned in a proper Street Fighter game, he did come back in Capcom vs. SNK Part 2, where they gave him like a stronger kind of Freddie Mercury gimmick. And, kind of flirty with the guys there, here and there, and stuff. And also, don't know if it really counts or not, but with all the multiple revisions of Street Fighter Alpha 3, like for the handhelds, like for the PSP or whatever, Eagle was an extra character added in there. Because they wanted to just throw everyone they could in the kitchen sink. They threw in Maki, they threw in Ingrid, and Eagle. But so far, Eagle has not come back in a legit Street Fighter game. And that's one character I would not mind to see come back. There aren't many characters in Street Fighter that use sticks. The closest is Falk, but she uses like a big, it's more like a baton kind of thing, like Rolento. But having a character with 2 sticks like that would be unique. And also, I'd be kind of looking forward to what new designs or new things they might give Eagle. So he'd be a cool guy to bring back.
Yeah, if they brought back Eagle, one thing that I would strongly request on the redesign, I would beg for this. Like you said, he gives Freddie Mercury vibes off. Give him the outfit from Queen's Wimbledon tour. So, like, the yellow spiked kind of Thriller jacket and, like, the white pants and the Adidas. Give him that outfit. I will buy 5 copies of that game. I swear to God I would.
You know what? I totally made a mistake. Okay, you know what? I can get behind that. But I was going to say that Eagle's weapon, it wasn't tonfa like I was thinking. I forgot they were like just regular batons. It's been a while since I've seen anything from the original Street Fighter. But yeah, I always wondered why they never brought Eagle back. I mean, I liked Eagle. I thought he was a cool character, and I really, 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 really love his theme.
Eagles, it'd be awesome if they bring him back.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a very charismatic character. Can't go wrong with him, looking like Freddie Mercury.
So then...
that, though, is that they should have added that one of his quotes is that we are the champions. That would have been awesome. We are the champions.
The closest thing he does is one of his intros in Capcom vs. SNK 2, he still says, like, no time for losers.
Oh, the name of his weapons, it was called, like, Kali sticks.
Ah, there we go. So now we move on to Japan, and first you fight Retsu, which is kind of like a monk guy. And my understanding is, I think he kind of fights in the, like, I guess the more simplified or more physical version of the Ryu and Ken style, but without doing the fireballs and the uppercuts and all the crazy shit or whatever. And
yeah, he is Kimpo, I believe.
Yeah. And, I mean, I believe he's the guy who should come back. He should come back, because that's his character that's a bit of a clean slate. Obviously throwing some Kempo in there, but, I mean, he's wide open for any other kind of, gimmick or thing that they might make up for him in Street Fighter. Like, it would be super badass to bring him. He probably would have to look older now because it's been a couple of years and stuff like that. But it would have been cool to see him come back. Maybe he could come back as some kind of grand master, because by now he's a master of his own like Kempo dojo, or maybe he's someone that wants to train Makoto, assuming that Makoto comes back or something like that. You know, that because they're kind of similar in the fight style too, sorta. So that would have been a cool thing. The most I know about Retsu is that he has come back, at least in the Street Fighter Udon comics. There's been a couple of cameos here and there and stuff like that. Udon does do a decent job with some of the characters. I think Joe and them, at least like in compilation covers, you know, those kind of covers put every single character ever in there. He appears more or less, but Retsu actually had a story or two, like flashbacks and things like that. But I think he should come back in a game. That's a cool character to look forward to.
You know, I think I found it interesting that maybe he should be like, you know, have his own dojo or something like that. I think that would be an interesting aspect to use. But also with his original backstory, you know, from what little I remember, you know, he was excommunicated because he was an instructor, but he was, you know, like banished or whatever for using forbidden moves, while just randomly fighting people, you know. So what kind of storyline could they get based around that, where he gets a dojo when he's like a former instructor in general, who was pretty much banished because he was, you know, a little bit unethical with his methods.
Well, what if he
just ran in the fights?
What if he like loses his way and makes I guess a corrupt dojo where he's teaching people, you know, how to do the forbidden moves on purpose or something, kind of like that the bad version school like they had
I mean, oh my god, did I really say Cobra Kai?
Yeah, Cobra Kai. That's what I was gonna say. Oh, dude, and they gotta do that. One of his win quotes better be "sweep the leg."
Okay, I take that back. If he says "sweep the leg," I'm buying 6 copies of this game now.
So if Eagle has that new look and Retsu, has that, you will buy a lot of copies of this game.
Yes, I would.
In fact, have his costume, his default costume, be some kind of XP version of the Cobra Kai outfit, and then make his monk outfit like his alternate or something, you know?
Or just for added humor value, in the back, just have his disciples dressed in like all black karate gis, and then just have one blonde hair kid with a yellow headband.
There you go. Now you're
Oh
talking.
my god, that would be great. I would applaud them. I would go to Capcom and just applaud them. I would stand outside the building and applaud them. And they said, now do something with Mega Man. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
That's a good question, though. How popular was the Karate Kid movies in Japan? Were they? I know they were a big hit here in America because the whole, the Japanese culture, but over there, that's just Tuesday for them, right? So, like, was it like a big thing over there, or was it just, those Americans with their crazy stuff over there, or how was that?
You mean like original Karate Kid? I have no idea. But the one with Jackie Chan and was it the Will Smith kid?
Yeah, Jaden.
It wasn't even called that in Japan because it's not karate. And I like how even the movie itself, within the movie, actually says it like, no, we're not doing the karate stuff, Mom. This is kung fu. Why did they just call? Why didn't they? I don't know. It was just crazy. But it was called like the Good Kid or something else in Japan, but I think it did okay, but only because Jackie Chan's popular in Japan, so that's good reason.
So Japan also has like different movie titles and stuff like that?
Yeah, depending on what it is. Like for something like that, Karate Kid, there is no karate, so it wasn't called the Karate Kid. Like I said, I believe it was called the Good Kid, but like I said, I don't remember too well.
Oh man.
I mean, because, I remember seeing, like, at the video stores and, like that, you can rent it. But, But I really think the movie did okay because Jackie Chan is popular in Japan. I mean, as far as I know, he was always pretty popular in Japan to the point where even years ago, when someone found that he was married or he had a significant other, I think there was a Japanese fan who kind of was a bit extreme over that and did not like that. I think it was a suicide. I could be misremembering that. I don't know. Jackie Chan is popular in Japan. Oh, and you know how Jackie Chan films, they do the bloopers? Sorry for going on a tangent here. But, they do the bloopers at the end and stuff?
Yeah.
As far as I remember, you get to thank Japan for that.
Now, there's just side tangent before we go back, since you brought the subject of how Japan might change the names of movies. One of the funniest ones we had is that in Mexico, the Home Alone movies, they were called My Poor Little Angel. Kind of like, I guess, the mother being worried about, the kid at home and stuff. So it's like Mi Pobre Angelito and all that. So the funny part is when they had the movie, wasn't it called The Good Son or something like that? The one where he was evil, the Macaulay Culkin?
Yeah.
I think I'm one of the few people that really liked that movie back then, because I like seeing Macaulay Culkin kind of evil.
Yeah. So in Mexico, they call that one the Evil Angel. So the trailers, like most of the commercials, would have said something of the effects of, who would have thought that My Poor Little Angel would have become the Evil Angel coming in theaters near you. Like, they're not the same character, guys. I mean, they're the same actor, but not the same character,
It's like Macaulay Culkin made a heel turn.
Yeah, he made a heel turn. It's like, ¿Quién puede pensar que mi pobre angelito se convirtió en el ángel malvado? Like, what the hell?
That's crazy. It's crazy.
Macaulay Culkin goes heel.
Oh, God.
But I've always hated, I mean, no offense, but I've always hated the Spanish title, Mi Pobre Angelito. I'm sorry, but for me, it's always going to be Home Alone.
So anyways, back on track here. The next person you fight in Japan is Geki, who's a ninja character. He has talons similar to Vega, so I guess that's maybe some inspiration for Vega there, which is why he wouldn't come back, so that it wouldn't be like redundant. He also throws shurikens. He's one of the characters that also throws projectiles, because as everyone here knows, Ryu and Ken, fireball, uppercut, hurricane kick, we know their moves by now. But yeah, so Geki throws shuriken, and he also teleports. He does that ninja puff of smoke stuff, so it kind of makes it hard to tag him sometimes, because he's teleporting all over the place. The computer might spam it sometimes. So that was a particular dangerous character to fight against with several attacks for such a simple game, And again, he's another character that hasn't come back in a while in any games or anything, but he has appeared in the Udon comics. That was actually those like these little miniseries on particular characters, or one based on Chun-Li, one based on Cammy, one based on Sakura, and one based on Ibuki. And in Ibuki's case, there was a part where her clan was attacked and she was captured. Her, Makoto, Elena, and her innocent friend that doesn't fight, that she's just there. I think her name is Sarai. They were all captured by the Geki Ninja clans. There was an entire clan of them. Like, the clan was called Geki. It wasn't like in the game where we assume it's just a guy named Geki. So that was kind of different. And they obviously fought their way out of it and stuff like that. But that was like the closest I've ever seen to him being referenced again. And I think he appears here and there, like throughout the comics, usually messing with Ibuki and stuff like that. But yeah, in official games and things, he hasn't come back yet. And I'm thinking that, again, he's another character that should make a comeback. And Ninja's got all kinds of weapons. And again, Street Fighter, especially Part 5, did a good job with all the new things. So make him just use the claw. Make him ditch the claw. And make him have something else. Maybe make him fight with nunchucks. Or make him fight with, kunai blades or something. Maybe for his super, he could do a whole bunch of whatever the hell, razzle-dazzle stuff. But then the final move, he puts his claw on and cuts you with the claw to kind of, bring back the nostalgia for when he had the claw. But during actual gameplay, have him do other moves or something. And yeah, I mean, they could do that. That'd be cool.
I was thinking this while we were talking about Retsu, and he's having this little Cobra Kai dojo thing going on. Can we just give Geki a backstory and have him as one of the ninja in Retsu's dojo? I'm just saying, why not, right? Because he has he has a blank slate for a backstory. So he toss that in there, Maybe someone, they messed up with his clan and he's getting revenge and he's going to Retsu's dojo so he can, because he knows good, he want to use his ninjutsu plus Retsu style and get revenge or something. I don't know. It's lame, but I don't know. I don't want Geki or Retsu to have a connection.
Actually, for humor value, what they should do, they should take Geki and just have it so that he's been following Sagat the whole time through the tournaments, like silently stalking him, and then like have Sagat catch him, only to find out he's like the brother of Dan Hibiki, and he's out for revenge for his father as well.
Oh my god! What was that?
I can get behind that.
Because I mean, if you look in the Street Fighter Alpha photos of Dan of the original Street Fighter Alpha art book, there's actually a picture where Dan actually joined Retsu's school and got beat up and kicked out. Like, he's kind of crouched down and he's holding his hand over his face like he just broke his nose, and Retsu's just kind of walking off like, yeah, get the F out of my dojo.
So moving on to China, now we got Lee, who's your, Chinese kung fu guy and everything. And, again, another character. I forgot what particular moves he has. Probably like chops and things. But, yeah, I don't know. I believe he's also appeared in the Udon comics here and there. Like I said, they're pretty good about making the Street Fighter 1 guys have cameos here and there. Or little, bit parts or flashbacks or whatever. But, yeah, that's another character that could also come back to one of the games. We don't have one of those, kind of like that, like that guy from Virtual Fighter, or kind of like Tao Pai Pai from Dragon Ball. They're both kind of based on the same kind of martial arts style. We don't have someone like that fights in that kind of kung fu style. Maybe like a rival to Chun-Li, because of course Chun-Li is the she's the kung fu person of the series, but have like a competitor with a different unique style and the cool ponytail and just the overall look. That would be kind of badass. I just hope they don't accuse Capcom of, you're copying Virtual Fighter or whatever. But that would be a cool character to see in the game if you ever give him like a redesign or remake or something.
If they were to bring him back, and like from a design standpoint, I'll call him a little fashioned, but I like that. I like his original design. I like that old like kung fu movie style, thing he has going on for him. So I would like to see that, an old style, but just with a new take on it, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Something about that look, I just always liked that, especially since I used to like watching older kung fu movies sometimes. So I like that style.
You know what I think about now? One thing we don't have that we've seen in a couple of martial arts movies here and there, we don't have someone that actually fights with chopsticks. Like, have the guy have like a bowl of whatever and the chopsticks, and he catches all your. He'll be like one of those real good parry guys where he'll parry and catch all your moves with his chopsticks and shit.
Yeah.
Hell, his super could be like, the famous thing where they throw the soup in the air, does a bunch of fancy shit on you, and then you fucking just drop base first as he, catches the soup perfectly and eats it or something.
Yeah, better yet, they could do something like Oro, like he never drops that turtle that he has in Street Fighter 5. Make it so that he's eating a bowl of rice, and the whole time while you're fighting him, he's like attacking you, but he's also dodging and keeping the bowl of rice safe and eating it the whole time.
Yeah.
But I do agree with that character design. Like, that character design is pretty darn good. Like, if they bring him back, they should just leave him completely untouched. Just leave him exactly the way he is. If anything, just for humor value, maybe add a couple of sound effects from like some old kung fu movies or something like that, just to spark some nostalgia on it. But otherwise, leave him alone.
Yeah. Like I said, it's such a nice old school look, and I just love it.
So now we're going to get into more familiar territory. The next person you fight is going to be Gen, which has needs almost no introduction. And honestly, Gen looks pretty much exactly the same. I think Alpha just gave him a more kind of stylized beard style, like the beard shape, but he looks basically exactly the same. One of the things they did, of course, in the Alpha games is they gave him two different fighting styles. They gave him, like, I believe it was like the crane style, and I don't know what their style is, but you guys can kind of correct me there. But yeah, he's a former assassin, and he helps train Chun-Li. So Chun-Li kind of learned, her super kick moves. I forgot what it's called. The actual name. They call it the lightning legs, but I don't know. I think it has a more specific name than that. But she got that off of Gen's attack. And obviously Gen has come back in the Street Fighter Alpha series, and he's also been in, actually I believe he was introduced in Alpha 2, he wasn't in Part 1, he was introduced in Alpha 2 and 3, and he also appeared in Street Fighter 4, but he didn't make it to Street Fighter 5. But yeah, that's a cool character. Obviously with him, it'll be cool to see him back if possible, based on his story. But But he's a character that's been around, so obviously he's a familiar guy. I mean, it'd be cool to see him back, but doesn't really need it just yet because he's been in enough games already. He's made to come back a couple of times.
Again, as we talked about earlier, I'd love to see how they would get away with that, seeing as technically in the stories he's kicked the bucket. Cancer finally took hold and he passed away. But I'd like to see what they would do to kind of get around that to implement him into the new game.
Yeah, because he was still around in Street Fighter 4, looking even older if possible, but now with like these big bangs.
Yeah, no, Street Fighter 4, he looked like the major kung fu movie villain. It's like, this is the guy that Bruce Lee would come in to fight to reclaim, the worth of the Shaolin Temple for this guy. Like, he looked like the big boss villain in that game. I actually liked his design there.
Any thoughts on Gen, Johnny?
Not too much. You said, it's a kind of like a unique character for because he came back in Street Fighter Alpha, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Street Fighter Alpha 2. Yeah. So he's just a very interesting character. But again, I'm not really familiar with Street Fighter 1. So in many cases, which I'm pretty sure this happens to a lot of, casual fans or more like the modern day fans that have no clue what Street Fighter 1 was, they're probably thinking, whoa, look at this brand new character, and it's not really him,
I love this supers, man. I love like the one that he dashes past you and the damage hits you later. The one where he like hits you, like he does like I guess a pressure point thing, and there's a little counter, a timer I should say, and the timer runs out, you just fucking blow up and die and shit. And the real cool one, because it was so hard to get perfect, was the one where he grabs you like in the air, like you have to time it just right when the person jumps at you. Because, Alpha with the 3 button at the same time makes it annoying to do the supers. But it just grabs you in the air and just fucking, like, lands on your throat. Like, that was fucking epic,
You know what? It just dawned on me. His style switch, he's actually switching between Yun and Yang's fighting styles. Because in the crane stance, he has the rolling kick, the same as Yang. And he also has the Retsu waving fist, is just the same as Yang's. But then when he switches to the other style, he kind of has that leaping back fist. And yeah, he has the attack where he just kind of stomps down on your neck from midair. So yeah, he basically is Yun and Yang split into one person.
I never realized that, but it does make sense since he trained him and everything.
That's creative. And like you said, it does make sense. Like you said, he trained him. He trained quite a few people, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But of course, including Chun-Li, but yeah.
So now we're going to get into even more familiar territory. When you defeat the fighters in these 4 countries, now all of a sudden Thailand shows up, and you got to fight against the 2 guys there. And the first one you fight against is, of course, Adon, who is Sagat's #1 disciple. And needless to say, Adon has also returned in Street Fighter Alpha, and he's also returned in, in Street Fighter 4. He has not come back in 5, though, but he made his mark in Street Fighter Alpha and 4. And, he has the crazy moves. He has the Jaguar Tooth and everything. I believe he did a version of that in Street Fighter 1, but not the other one where he kind of dashes all the way across the screen like that. But, he's a pretty memorable character. He's pretty cool. And he fights he's like a different style of Muay Thai as opposed to Sagat, because let's face it, Sagat has the moves and stuff, but most of his supers are just like just the Ryu and Ken type things. Adon's more original. His music, his background stage was kind of annoying though, because I remember it was like the drums and beats, but just like this long ongoing beat or something, this long ongoing sound that made it kind of annoying in the original arcade. The internal graphics made it sound a little bit better, but his music theme was never like too much of my favorite in that one. And on that note, I do want to bring up that I believe Birdie's original Street Fighter 1 theme had a bit of the beats and things that you would hear in his Alpha rendition of his song. I don't remember too much about Gen though, but Birdie did had a bit of that kind of rockin' beats in the beginning that's kind of sort of reminiscent. You kind of sort of have to really put your ear to hear it, but it's kind of there, at least for his theme. So kudos to Capcom for bringing some of that back.
If they do another the Dome's theme, going back to that, because I agree with you. I don't care which version you listen to you play of Street Fighter 1, original Street Fighter, a Dome's theme will always be annoying, like it's just I hate it. I didn't even want to play the stage. I just did not like hearing the music. And the arcade, in my opinion, sounds worse than some of the other versions. But I'm just thinking about Street Fighter 1. I didn't play it, but I saw somebody. The person that was next to me who was playing the other Street Fighter cabinet, an older guy, smoking, he was playing it, and he was kind of breathing through the games, and I was just thinking, how with the controls, because the characters were so stiff, it was so hard to move them. But with Adon, he was like so fast, and it was all of his moves and stuff. I'm surprised anyone could get to Sagat in this game.
As the argument about the game too, it's like the moves are so damaging. The Dragon Punch, I think it takes almost like half your life of the opponent's life and stuff. That if the controls were actually good and the characters weren't just kind of hopping around like I don't know, like all janky, like the game would have been super easy. It would have been a walkthrough. Just hit a guy with a fireball or two and bam, But it was just so hard to do them. That's what made the game so difficult, and the computer's like jumping all over your ass, spamming the fuck out of you. But if it was a bit more controlled, the game would have been a walkthrough. You just uppercut everyone and then just win.
Yeah, definitely, because that's what you saying that was you described what I couldn't. So yeah, that's exactly how I would say it. Because thinking back, you're right. The moves did seem to take a lot out of you, but it was hard to pull off the moves. And it kind of wasn't, too much fun that you didn't have much choice. But it was the first game. It was, kind of the first game of its kind. I give it a pass. I give it a slight pass.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead. So, Adon, it's cool to see him in the Street Fighter Alpha version of the character and kind of like what they did with him. And he's crazy and he's kind of noisy. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how Street Fighter Alpha basically kind of bring back a lot of the Street Fighter 1 characters that are probably not that known. And it's kind of like Capcom's way of, like, hey, these characters, we made these characters, so they kind of put them a little bit more on the spotlight.
I have a question because, in all honesty, I don't know much about the Alpha games. I mean, I didn't really play them much. And I forgot that Adon was even in there until you guys mentioned it. Now, you mentioned that Johnny just mentioned that Adon was, like, kind of noisy. Do you think that was kind of a throwback to the fact that his theme from the original game is noisy?
Could be. He had a very high-pitched voice, and all his attacks were very, very high-pitched, like he-yas and yas and stuff like that.
Yeah, it could be. He sounded like more one of the maniacal anime villains. He was one of those types. But in their defense, they gave him a really, really, really bomb background music for Street Fighter Alpha.
Oh,
that was my next question.
Oh, yeah, his music was awesome, dude. I mean, his music is so awesome with the guitars and stuff that, like, you got YouTubers, like, playing their covers of it on their electric guitars and shit like that. It's that badass. It's like metal and guitar and everything.
Now, can I say that in terms of the soundtrack, like in general, Street Fighter Alpha 3, in my opinion, is like one of the best soundtrack in the Street Fighter universe, in my opinion.
Yeah, Street Fighter Alpha 3 was like, it's party time, Like, Street Fighter Alpha 2 was more like, we're going to make little remixes of all the Street Fighter 2 themes and, all the characters with their familiar themes. But Street Fighter Alpha 3 was like, yeah, it's party time. Yo, crank up the beats. Because almost everyone in that game had, block rocking beats, for lack of a better term. And I gave them points for originality. It was like the only game where they didn't just do the, remixes of Ryu's theme and Ken's theme and Chun-Li's theme. Everyone had, all new music.
I don't know. I'm still kind of stuck on the arranged versions of Alpha 1 where they actually used, live instruments instead of the keyboards and synthesizers. To me, those were the best ones, especially Ken's, Adon's, and Nash's. Nash had an amazing background music for his. Now,
one thing I found it so long ago, and it's like, it's so hard to find anymore, because I forgot what it was even called, or the channel, or whatever, but someone, I don't know if it was a fan project or original Japanese, because I know a lot of games out there had, their little soundtracks and people singing and stuff like that. So there was, this soundtrack where every character, quote-unquote, would sing along to their theme song. They would sing, you know, I don't know, something about being a fighter or whatever, but they would sing along with their theme song. So Ryu would be singing along to his theme song, the Street Fighter 2 theme, and Ken would be singing along to his theme song and Chun-Li and all that stuff. But the funny part is, like, Bison, they would play Bison's theme or rendition of it, and he'd just be humming it. Instead of singing it, he'd just be like, but it sounds so sinister that you could picture him doing it. Because the other characters sounded like these kind of hokey voices or whatever that may or may not be them. But when Bison did it, you could, like, yeah, that's Bison humming along to his fucking theme song.
I have that soundtrack. I have both of those. I have the vocal versions and the instrumental versions of all of that. Which is fun, and like you said, with his theme, yeah, he just humming, you know, like, I don't know, like, you can tell like he's planning something sinister is about to happen. It works so well.
Oh man! Now I imagine Bison sitting down in his command center with a fucking, you know, glass of red wine or something, and the music just plays like you know, like, Sagat, play my music, and it's playing in the background. He's just humming as he's thinking of his next evil plan or something.
While doing the thing with his fingers, like, excellent. I'm sorry, but you know, like Mr. Burns.
Yeah. When the song stops playing, he's like, yes, I got it. We shall create the cycle drive. Oh man, but that is fucking awesome. They actually own the soundtrack though, Jupi. That's damn. That's awesome.
What I was searching for while I was in Japan. Soundtracks and things like that, you know. So, yep.
Oh man.
I think the only thing that would make that funnier is if they remixed it and did a choir version, and the choir was like the members of the Dolls.
Oh god.
Oh my gosh.
So anyways, the final boss here, of course, needs no introduction. It is none other than Sagat. At this time, he was the undisputed champion, so he was the one holding the tournament. And, yeah, so obviously, as you know, he does the, no, actually, I believe, does he do the tiger shots in part 1? Does he do both moves, the tiger shots and the uppercut, or just the tiger shots?
I think it was just the tiger shots from a little bit that I remember.
Yeah. So he was like the tough enemy because he actually I think he's the only character that actually threw fireballs besides the main characters. And yeah, he would do lots of jumping around, just spamming all his punches and things. Everything he would fucking do would just chip your energy away like nothing. So you could literally die in seconds after the guy says fight. You could just die. So it was so fucking annoying. And yeah, so obviously, of course, Ryu defeated him. He gets the scar in the sequel. And the sequel, not only does he come back with the scar, but he also comes back now with the tiger uppercut, which is his version of the dragon punch and everything. But yeah, so of course, Sagat's a very known character. Of course, he makes a big comeback. And he's also appeared in Street Fighter 5 and everything. So would not really surprise me if he comes back in Street Fighter 6 as later on DLC. He's not part of the base roster just yet, but I would not be like, you know, falling to the floor in sheer shock and awe that Sagat would be DLC. Like, that's someone you just expect. It'd be a bigger shock if he didn't appear, you know? But yeah, he's a cool character. Not sure what else you could say about him that we don't already know, because he is very common. I mean, he's one of the original characters from Street Fighter 2, of the 4 bosses and all that. So yeah. Not sure what anyone else can add to him.
Well, you know, Sagat, yeah, like you said, interesting character, been around since the beginning. If he's not around for anything else, like, yeah, same thing. I could not imagine him as a DLC character. It's like one of those characters, like, you have to find a way to just get him in that game, you know? In any Street Fighter game that pops up. But, you know, something that you were saying about how, like, when you fought against him, how he could easily, like, you know, just drain your life, your HP and stuff. That's a pet peeve I did have with that game. I mean, like you said, a lot of the moves can take out so much out of you, whether you're Ken or you or whoever's fighting against you. I'm a music person. I like to hear the stage music, but the fights go so fast you can't hear them. Because, you know, after, like, I don't know, 30 seconds, you lose, you know, or you win.
Yeah. But also remember, you know, the whole name of the game is, hey, gotta eat up your quarters. You gotta spend those $2, $3, $4 worth just trying to beat Sagat.
Well, like you said, they have to make their money somehow, and that's how the arcades work.
Oh yeah. Now one thing I do want to know, cause I forgot if it was something for a TurboGrafx-16 version or the arcade or whatever, but can someone correct me if I'm wrong? Did Ryu still say the classic, Hadouken, Shoryuken, whatever? But when you pick Ken, wasn't Ken literally saying Dragon Punch, Fireball, or something like that? Or was that just the TurboGrafx-16 version, or?
No, I think Ken and Ryu used the English in like international versions of the game, but it was like Fireball and like it was like Dragon Punch and Fireball and whatever. I can't remember too well, but yeah, I think they just Ken and Ryu did it. And given the fact that they probably didn't have the the memory and stuff to like do it so differently, because even with the losing screen, everybody had like the same voice practically.
Yeah.
Well, I forgot what, like if Ryu wins or whatever, he pretty much had the same voice. Ken had the same voice. I'm gonna look for stronger fighters of all across the world or whatever the phrase was. So
Yeah.
I think that it was just easier just give them the same voice and just put it in English because English country. Let's just just have them saying the same. Just translate the moves.
That was like the most sour grapes kind of like loose quote for all of them. It's like yeah, very good, but don't forget there are stronger people than you all over the world. So it's kind of like yeah, you whoop my ass, but someone else will. Yeah, they will. Someone else will. I mean, you beat the shit out of me, but someone else is gonna whoop your ass. I promise.
Wait a minute. Here's something I don't remember because it's been so many years now. When you lose, what does it say? Was it the same thing? I don't
No,
remember.
I think it was like, try again, kid, or something like that.
Okay, gotcha.
Which I kind of remember Sagat said that in the Alpha games. Wasn't one of his win poses like, try again, kid? Like, I think it was kind of reference to that.
Yeah, it was something close to that nature.
I just know it wasn't that super long quote or whatever,
And the thing is, I'm wondering if the Japanese version did that too, because honestly, I just do not remember. I mean, I did get past like the first, like few fighters, but I had enough yen to do it, but I cannot remember for the life of me.
Oh, man. And then all the attempts to make a Street Fighter sequel, which of course Final Fight was once known. I mean, obviously we'll make an episode all about Final Fight sooner or later, but yeah, at the time it was going to be called Street Fighter 89, but it was just so different that, yeah, let's make it its own game, see what happens with that one. And of course, Street Fighter 2010 for Nintendo.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we're not gonna talk about that.
Oh my goodness. Hey, okay, we got some space. We have some aliens and spaceships and all that stuff. Yeah, what is Street Fighter again?
And now, I don't know if the guy was actually called Ken in Japan. I think he was just called Ken in America because, god damn it, we need some connection to Street Fighter.
Yeah, you're right. Because I was about to bring that up. But I was like,
his name in Japan was like Kevin Riker. He was supposed to be like some sort of super police officer who ended up getting this virus, and he was trying to fight through all the stages to find the cure to save the virus and save his friend, who you later find out was the actual bad guy who wasn't a doctor named Ryu.
Yeah. I was like, wait, what? For English anyway, but I don't know much about the Japanese version of that. I mean, except for the name change, and like that was like the only Street Fighter connection they could make by just giving him the name Ken.
And it was so confusing because, I mean, it was made by Capcom. If it was made by some other company, like, yeah, it would have made more sense. But this is like Street Fighter 2010 made by Capcom. You're like, what the fuck? Like...
They were trolling their fans, that's all. They were trolling the consumers.
Oh, God. I saw a friend of mine, he did like the Game Genie code or something. Because the game, from what I remember, was super hella tough. So he did a Game Genie code or whatever. So I saw him like play through the whole game and everything, just out of curiosity of what is this game. But knowing that I won't be able to play that shit. But yeah, that was a very weird, curious oddity there, having that name and everything.
Now here's where it gets funny. Street Fighter, the main two characters, Ryu and Sagat, are based after a manga that was back in the 60s and 70s, named Karate Baka Ichidai, where there was a character who was a pilot in World War II, who decided, like, after the war, he would literally just travel the world and prove the strength of his karate, and he ran into Thailand, and this became his main villain. It was this guy named Raiba, who literally looks exactly like Sagat. I mean, right down to being tall, lanky, buff, the eye patch and everything. Not to mention the guy used to actually have a pet tiger. So, yeah, it's actually based after that manga.
Oh, God.
Ooh.
I also noticed when I did a quick Google search of the name while you were talking, and yeah, the guy does look kind of like a kind of more bushier hair Ryu, but in some of the panels, I guess as he gets older, flat out looks like Takuma Sakazaki.
Yeah, apparently he's based after a real karate master named Mas Oyama.
Oh, wow. Well, that is pretty amazing. But yeah, but there you go, guys. That's the story of the first Street Fighter that, I mean, obviously Capcom wanted to make some money when they made Part 2, but it had no idea exactly like how super crazy Part 2 would be. Like, Street Fighter 2 literally owned the fucking arcade back then and everything. And, just the overall idea, the idea of making a two-player where you beat the other guy, well, the other guy's got to put another quarter in to continue and all that, and people started doing, like, winning streaks and apparently combos were, like, bugs by mistake, but hey, keep it in, the kids love it, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of cool, and hopefully some of these guys come back in some way, shape, or form, the forgotten guys, like Joe and them, Joe, Retsu, Chin, and Geki, and Eagle. Background cameos, ending cameos, or something. I mean, Eagle, like I said, he has some credit because he already was in Kakarot SNK 2. Like, the moves are there. You could adapt those moves, you know. Like, the other guys, you gotta kind of go for the ground up, more or less. But that dude, he's already there. Just put him in a more modern game. That's the biggest thing that was surprising, that both Maki and Eagle were in that SNK vs. Capcom 2, but they never came back into the legit game. Like, I would have flipped if they were, like, the last DLC for Street Fighter 4 or 5, you know what I mean? I'm even surprised that, like, Lucia beat Maki to it, you know?
Yeah, no, I was kind of surprised about that.
And then, like, despite the fact that Lucia was now introduced to Final Fight 3, and that was way after the Bad Gear Gang had their downfall or whatever, like, her story, when you play Street Fighter, they want to make it like she was fighting alongside them in Final Fight 1. I'm like, okay.
Well, my question is this. So you had Dean in Final Fight 3 who claims he was a former Street Fighter, but there's no record of him in any of the Street Fighter tournaments.
Yeah, I should bring him back.
But okay, so what if they keep a storyline with Dean like that, but he's never, no record of him ever being in any of the tournaments? But what backstory would you give him as to why he's saying something like that? That seems to be like something like Joe would probably say because, he's, on the run or whatever. So what kind of story could you give to Dean for something like that?
You know what? That would be the funnier part. Maybe we can do like a kind of an espionage deal where you find out Dean is actually Joe and he entered this tournament to find out who tarnished his name and killed his family.
Well, as long as there's no painting involved, I'm good.
Jeez. But it is true, though. They got a bunch of characters, and they got, like, more characters than they need, because you're never going to see them in the games or whatever, You got, like, the Forgotten guys from Street Fighter 1. Then you got, like, Dean is a Street Fighter, but you never see him there. You got the entire cast of, Saturday Night Slam Masters that you're never going to see in the Street Fighter games. The rival school characters are not part of it too, apparently, because now they got Akira in there. And, there was some other people. I'm trying to remember what other people were also... in the comics and in the game, and at Shadowloo's site, they created this entire female wrestling organization where apparently Rainbow Mika and, I forgot Nadeshiko... And I believe that female character from Saturday Night Slam Masters are all members of this group, but you got all these other wrestler characters that you're never going to see in the games or anything. They just keep making all these extra characters, and you got like the Delta Red members too, and whatever. Like all these extra characters that you're never gonna see. You know, the additional dolls besides the main ones that we see. All that kind of weird stuff. They got too many characters that you're never gonna see in the actual games. You know, because there's just so much backstory and things. Like it would make sense if it was just like the, you know, someone stay-at-home husband or wife or whatever don't fight, but you got all these cool potential fighters, and yet you're never gonna see them. You know.
That's the unfortunate thing about, I think, any long-going series or game series, especially fighting series. They keep adding more and more to the roster, and they're pushing others aside. Or either they can't develop the other characters because they keep putting in newer ones, or they may be focusing on just a certain amount that, like, you know, like your early characters, bringing other characters, kick out some characters. I mean, I don't know. I think they should focus. I know big rosters are a thing because they're good for like online tournament play and stuff. I just think, like, just bring it down, just a tad, you know.
I just remember Sean and Laura also got a bunch of extra siblings, which again we're never gonna see them in the game. It's like those guys who made the Shadaloo files. They just went overboard on that shit.
Yeah, that's where I pull a lot of the information from. Speaking of which, instead of, like, turning Kin into, like, the down bad Terry Bogard, why don't they just put Mel in there? He should be about 16 at this point.
Yeah, but Mel's probably with his mom now, thinking that his dad's a deadbeat or something. You know how they always kind of turn your kids against you and whatever, so... I was going to say, that would make the storyline even more depressing. Not only is Ken, like, now has been, and the wife left him, but now to fight against your son that hates you too in the game, like, oh god.
That's where I was about to go with that, but you beat me to it. But that's a storyline they could use. You know, I'm here because my father, you know, I'm here, Dad, I don't like you, I don't like what you did, I'm here to fight you to prove my worth.
We need Kenny Omega in Street Fighter. I mean, maybe not him per se, but some kind of character that you could just tell is based on Kenny Omega.
Yeah, that would definitely be funny.
And the promotion with AEW would be like Limitless. But on that note, I think we kind of covered everything. I don't know if you guys got any other comments or quotes or last minute random ideas.
Well, not really much to say. Pretty much like what's already been said. I think Street Fighter 1 was still... I wouldn't say the greatest game, but it was still a good game in its time. It's kind of like the baby Street Fighter. Like it's a game that kind of started it all before fighting games became extremely popular, before Street Fighter 2 happened. And, you know, it is interesting that even though Street Fighter 1 is kind of like the forgotten game, they still kind of bring back a couple of their characters in the Street Fighter Alpha series.
Oh, one last thing I do want to mention, I don't want to let this go because it was so weird, you know, but like the modern day It movies, the Stephen King, you know, remakes and everything, they really showed a lot of Street Fighter. They showed that whenever the kids were in the arcade store, like that was the game they were playing. They were playing Street Fighter and stuff like that, which is just so weird. Like yeah, for me, I would have been more used to like Street Fighter 2 by understanding that the movie took place at a time where it didn't exist yet. It was Street Fighter 1. But it just feels weird seeing kids playing Street Fighter 1 with the intensity that you would imagine them playing Part 2. You know what I mean? Like, I would not be surprised if a lot of people just walked right past that game on their way to play something else back then. You know what I mean? But yeah, there is a special shout out that in both It movies, during the, you know, the kids, the flashbacks or whatever, they were playing Street Fighter very predominantly in the arcades.
I didn't catch that. I saw the first one. I didn't see the second one, but it was so long, you know, so many years ago. I don't remember that. But, you know, going back to the whole Street Fighter 1 thing, I think that regardless, I think people should play the game. I mean, it's older. It might, you know, by modern standards, it's not considered good, but it still helped to kind of start those styles of games, and we still have them now because of games like Street Fighter. I mean, it wasn't like groundbreaking like Street Fighter 2, like Johnny said, but I still said it's a piece of history. You should try it out. It helped influence the industry, and I think, you know, you should try to play it, even if it's a little frustrating at times because you get your HP knocked down so fast, or just trying to pull off the very stiff moves.
Yeah, and if you ever see the arcade machine with two big buttons, don't touch it. You'll break your hand.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty cool because, like, now that you mentioned it, and that I remember I did look a little bit up on Rhythm Street Fighter as far as the gaming cabinets went because in Japan I didn't see that kind. I had I played the tabletop version of it, but yeah, I think that was interesting that they actually even had that, which means they were trying to be innovative, and I think that's good.
The funniest thing they would have done, maybe just for the sake of novelty and stuff, maybe not even to play, just to have, one of those things that you just would brag about having but not really use. But can you imagine them releasing Street Fighter 1 arcade sticks, but they're like the big pads, and somehow make it adaptable to modern day games? It's like, oh yeah, you're gonna play your XM versus Street Fighter. Well, hold on, I got my power stick right here, bitch. And you're pulling it out with the fucking giant pads, and they're looking at you like, the fuck is that thing, dude?
I'd like to see that. It would be a nice little addition, and also a nice challenge. Is like you beat Street Fighter using the pads, home port of it, or it'd be like trying to play any game with the Power Glove, right?
Oh god, it's like the equivalent of like, hey dude, can I borrow your phone? And they give you like the big ass like 80s phones, so those giant sized ones, and you're like, whoa, huh, what?
Oh yeah, the ones that weighed about like 100 pounds.
I never noticed so much, like in Saved by the Bell. One of the things that made Zach Morris like one of the cool kids or whatever is because he had his phone. He would just pick it up and dial whatever in the phone. But like my memory just goes like whatever. I forgot there was those big ass brick phones. I keep imagining it to be like, I guess, a more modern day or a flip phone or something, but no, it was one of those big ass phones. I gotta rewatch those episodes. I forgot all about that. And to be honest, like with the Turtles, since they've always had the Turtle comms, or April was just use a payphone or something, I don't remember them ever having them big ass phones, unless that was even before then or something.
No, they've been around for a good while, and even though Saved by the Bell was after that, but they had the cell phones and the car phones and stuff back in the 80s. But the thing is, only like the rich people would be using those because they're really expensive to use.
Yeah, and I remember the battery pads looked like a big suitcase.
Oh god, well, we sure advanced way past then, didn't we? My goodness.
Oh, most definitely.
Well, on that note, I think we kind of covered everything we could for right now. Obviously, Street Fighter 1 isn't that much of a complex game that you can really go hours and hours and hours talking about it, to be honest. So we kind of covered all we did there. Eventually, of course, we'll go into the more popular sequel and other games as we try to tackle each game at a time to really make these episodes last and stuff, as well as, the newer things that come out here and there, any new Street Fighter 6 news that might pop in between now and then, and stuff like that. And of course, reminder, guys, we're now officially on Spotify, we're on Amazon Music, we're on Samsung Music, and apparently, based on the analytics here, New York City is really loving us now. They actually beat Belgium now with the thing. So, hey, New York City. It's like that old commercial, I think it was like a chili commercial, where they're like, New York City! But yeah, they love us over there.
Get a rope.
Yeah. What was it?
It was Pace Picante sauce.
Picante sauce. Yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, so there you go, guys. So yeah, on behalf of everyone here, this is Mark Rodriguez here. We're signing off.
NinjaPanda 1980.
Jupi-chan out.
And Johnny Rodriguez.
And we'll see you next time. Coming up soon, we'll be talking about more fighting games. But we also got Death Before Dishonor around the corner. So stay tuned for that when we give our predictions in a couple of weeks. So yeah, see you then.
All right.
Bye.
Later.